Impact Media, putting a face on radio.
This is Chris Bathgate, and you're watching Impact Media.
WDBM East Lansing here, and I'm Matt, chatting with Chris Bathgate. And so the first time I saw you, Chris, it was a solo show, but you've done a lot of different formulas with live shows. How would you explain the differences and what that's like?
Yeah, there's quite a few. So let's start with a really big band. Sometimes I play with a really big band with horns, trombone, trumpet, pedal steel, violin, a couple electric guitars, bass, drums, and sometimes aux percussion. That's been getting more rare as time's been going on. It's a lot for small sound systems to handle, and sometimes in the fullness there's a muck that can't you know there's some things that just can't cut through. But that band is sort of called the Hail Marys.
Okay.
And it sort of is derived out of me calling up everyone that I knew the day of a show and telling them all to show up. And I've played with a bunch of different people for years now in the Ann Arbor area, so the number of people that I can call that know my songs it's a pretty high number, so that's a blessing. There's a smaller group rolling around now that it's probably more recent, maybe in the past 6 months, called the Young Bucks, Chris Bathgate and the Young Bucks. And that's 4 dudes, everybody playing a couple different instruments, floor toms. And yeah, I play solo a lot, and I loop my guitar and voice now. So it's sort of me and me and me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it seems like I can't really hear your name without it being instantly associated with the Ann Arbor and Ypsi and even Michigan music scene.
Yeah.
What's that like? How do you feel about the scene or something like that?
I feel pretty positively about the scene. The one thing I think that's different about Michigan music than other areas is that, well, one I can compare it to is Philadelphia. We've got a lot of friends in Philadelphia, and there's a Philadelphia music scene. And while there may be Ann Arbor music scene or an Ypsi music scene or a Lansing music scene, I hear a lot of people say Michigan music, or like, oh, I love Michigan music, or Michigan folk, which is also like, strangely enough, a genre, and was before that Sufjan record came out, I think. So yeah, I think it's positive that the entire state seems unified or interested in the idea of unification. And I think it's happening in a lot of sort of vessels, and I'm not sure if they'll all come together at some point, and maybe we'll have a big summit, but I can definitely sense scenes within Michigan, but yeah, everyone calls it Michigan music. You're from Michigan,
Yeah.
Right? That's what they say.
All right, yeah. And it's been a couple years, I think 2007, since your last full-length album.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. It's been a long time.
So can we expect anything from you soon? Or are you in the studio, or what's going on?
Yeah, I just finished up a record that took me about 2 years to make, probably more than 2 years. I feel like maybe it's 2 years in a December. I started recording it a long, long time ago, and I've been working on it, but for the most part, for on and off for a pretty solid 2 years. It's a record called Salt Year, which is a song that actually came out on Weight Skeleton. But I felt really rushed in the studio when I recorded that, so I finally got a version that I'm super satisfied with, and a bunch of other new songs.
Great.
And that'll be out in February.
Okay, and what can we expect from that album, you think?
What can you...
Like sound-wise, like, how is it different from the last album, you think?
From the last full length, I think it sounds significantly better. There's a lot more fiddles and roomy junk percussion and foot stomps, but it's sort of it's not as chipper, I think, as I think there was some really happy songs on A Corktail Wake, and I'm hard up to say that there's a happy song on the new record, maybe a couple. But yeah, lots of sour fiddle and thuds.
Okay. And what's the latest tour been like these last couple of years after the album?
Well, I went on a pretty serious jaunt after Corktail. I went everywhere. I went all over the world. It was great. And then I sort of came back, and I've been sticking pretty much regional, Midwest and East Coast, and a bit through the South, but very sparingly. My shows have been very sparse, to be honest. I've been recording every chance I got, and working my keister off to pay for it.
Yeah. So did you say this album's gonna be? This is all out of your pocket then? Is that right?
Oh yeah. No, I see a lot of people doing really well with Kickstarter at this point, to pay for record releases, and I sort of am like kicking myself a little bit because it was really expensive, more expensive than I anticipated. I think the reason is that usually when I record an album, I'll demo it to an insane degree, so I'll make 5 or 6 versions of each song, and repeat them over and over again until I sort of get what it is that I'm looking for. Suddenly it'll come to life, it'll pop. There'll be a version that just suddenly, I can sense a big breath of air in it. And this time, there's a issue between demos that you record at home and the recording studio, like the high quality recording studio. There's some magic in demos, right? When you get it to pop and you're at home, there's some magic in demos. I think that it's a difficult thing to recreate in the studio, which is the process that I was using, where I record a song and then I recreate, those parts in that way in a recording studio with higher quality microphones and, more multi-tracking and stuff like that. So this record I actually started demoing in the studio in hopes that whatever magic I snag in those demos would come out on the full length, and it worked. But it took a long, long time, way longer than expected.
Great. And what kind of music have you been listening to lately, like old or new?
This week I've been listening to a lot of Richard Buckner. He might come to Michigan to Harvest Gathering, which maybe some of your listeners may know about, up in Lake City. I've been listening to a lot of Buckner. I've been on sort of like a dude singer-songwriter kick, which for a while I was listening to. There's a band called Small Black I've been listening to, super dancey, fun. But lately, maybe it's the fall, but is it pronounced Nathaniel Radcliffe? Did you know him at all?
I don't think so.
Amazing songwriter. So Buckner, Radcliffe, Tallest Man on Earth, stuff like that.
Great. And so what's next after this album comes out for you?
I'll spill it. All right. So about two years of recording, you work up a lot of songs, so I'm ready to go on the next one. And my hope is to have it finished before New Year's. So there'll be another album coming out called Thrush Music. And there's another project. I don't think I can actually tell anybody about it. 2 other projects. I don't know if I could tell anybody about it. So maybe I'll just say, other than a follow-up, which is almost finished being written and ready to record, called Thrush Music, which is going to be coming out after Salt Year. I'm like laying out my next 2 years for you. There's going to be 2 really special fun projects. One, I don't think I can say anything about it. I'll come back when I'm ready to talk about it.
Okay.
But one, I had to go to Illinois to learn how to create this thing that I'm about to create. I learned from my Aunt Lois. She lives in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in Illinois, in Magnolia. And then the other one, I have a lot of paperwork to fill out for, so I'll just leave those 2 projects at that and say one is something very physical, and one is not quite so physical yet, but involves me doing a lot of paperwork and getting permits. So yeah,
all right.
So that's what I'll be up to.
I think I'm really excited to find out what it is.
I'll come back when I can talk about them. So
all right, great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot.
No problem.